Today we're going to talk about the laws of exponents, and we're going to focus on multiplication. So our essential question that we hope to answer is, how do I use the multiplication properties of exponents to simplify expressions? So I'm just going to be focusing on the multiplication properties in this lesson. So let's look at the first multiplication property. The first multiplication property is the product of powers property. That tells me that I have two items with the same base, two terms with the same base, and I want to multiply them. So when you have the same base, you're just going to add the exponents. So algebraically, that looks like this, where we have a to the n times a to the m. So our base is a, and we write that as a, and then n times m would be n plus m. So we just add this. So if I look at the next example, I have 3 squared times 3 to the 7th. So 3 and 3 would be my base. And I have 2 plus 7 equals 9. When asked to write your answer in a single exponent, this is what they're asking for. Notice that my exponent, I do have an exponent, and it's a single exponent. It doesn't say 2 plus 7. So when you have to write it using a single exponent, that's what they are looking for in your answer. Let's look at some examples. In number 1, we have 5 to the 3rd times 5 to the 6th. Our base is 5, and 3 plus 6 is 9. That's my answer. In number 2, I have 3 times 3 to the 5th. My base is 3. Just a 3 means I have a 1 as an exponent, so 1 plus 5 is 6. In number 3, I have x squared times x to the 3rd times x to the 4th. My base is x, and then I add them. 2 plus 3 is 5, and 5 plus 4 is 9. And number 4, my base is -2. Notice that it's in parentheses, so I'm going to write it in parentheses. -2 by itself has an exponent of 1, and 1 plus 4 is 5. Again, leaving the -2 in the parentheses. Now, we're going to talk about what we do when we have a power of a power property. When you have power of a power, so that means you're taking an exponent and you're raising it to another exponent. So for example, I have a to the m, and I'm raising that to the nth. When that happens, we multiply them. Now let's talk about why. Let's look at the example 5 squared raised to the 4th power. That's telling me that I'm going to take 5 squared and I'm going to multiply it by itself 4 times. Now, if I follow the rule that we just learned, I know that anytime I multiply exponents with the same base, I add the exponents. So I have the same base of 5, and then I have 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 is 8. I can simplify that by saying, you know what? I know that I have 5 squared. I'm multiplying it 4 times. So 5 squared times 4 is 5 to the 8th. Let's practice. Number 1, I have 3 to the 5th, and I'm squaring it. So think to yourself, that's like saying I'm going to take 3 to the 5th power and multiply it by itself 2 times. The former property tells us that if I have 2 exponents and I'm multiplying them together, I get 3 and the exponents to the 10th. Or the power of a power property says I am going to multiply the exponents. Number 2, don't let the brackets fool you. The -3 is in parentheses so that you know that you're taking -3 to the 3rd power, which is -3 times -3 times -3. So that's my base, -3. And I'm cubing it and then squaring it. So it would be negative 3 to the 3 times 2 is 6. Same with number 3 using a variable. I have y squared raised to the 4th power. This is the same thing as taking y squared 4 times. Or y to the 2nd power raised to the 4th power is y to the 2, 4, 6, 8 power, or 2 times 4 is 8. Number 4, my base is just a little unusual. It's a plus 1, and I'm squaring that and then raising it to the 5th power. So it's like I'm squaring it and then timesing that by itself 5 times. So I'm going to multiply the exponents. My base is a plus 1, and that's going to be to the 10th power. Now, the last one is a power of a product property. The power of a product property tells me that I want to find the power of each factor and then multiply. For example, if I have a times b raised to the m power, that's the same thing as taking a to the m and b to the m, or you may think of it as distributing that m to each one. Now this only works if you're multiplying the bases, so be sure that you're doing that. If it's addition, it's different. So 2 times 3 raised to the 6th, you can either do 2 times 3 is 6 to the 6th power, or you can do 2 to the 6th and 3 to the 6th. If you multiply that together, you will get the same answer. Let's look at example number 1. We have 6 times 5 raised to the 2nd power. That's the same thing as taking 30 squared, which is 900. Or you can distribute that too and take 6 squared and 5 squared and timesing them together. So if you take 36 times 25, you will get 900. Number 2, be careful. You are distributing that 3 to everything. So it gets distributed to the 4, to the y, and to the x. It's the same thing as taking 4yx 3 times. So 4 times 4 times 4 is 64, and y times y times y is y cubed, and x times x times x is x cubed. And then these should be in alphabetical order in your answer, so that should be your final answer. Number 3, I have negative 2w inside parentheses, and I'm squaring that. So I'm taking negative 2w times itself twice. Or I'm distributing that 2 to everything in parentheses. Negative 2 squared times w squared. Well, negative 2 squared is 4, and w squared. If I do it longhand, negative 2 times negative 2 is 4, and w times w is w squared. Now, what's the difference between 3 and 4? Well, 4, the negative is on the outside. So we're just squaring positive 2w. Or we're distributing that 2 to everything in parentheses. That reduces it to negative 4w squared. Now, can we take all 3 properties and simplify this problem? Looking at this problem, we'll take it apart term by term. So if I look at the first term, I have 4x squared y raised to the 3rd power times x to the 5th. So let's simplify 4x squared y raised to the 3rd. You can rewrite 4x squared y 3 times and then multiply it. Or if you remember the properties, I know that anytime I have a product raised to a power, that power gets distributed to every single term. So now I'm going to have 4 to the 3rd power. X squared to the 3rd power would mean x squared times x squared times x squared. would be x to the sixth, and y to the third would be y times y times y, would be y to the third, times x to the fifth, just rewriting. Now simplify. 4 to the third power is 64. I can simplify my x's. If I have x to the sixth times x to the fifth, that's x to the 11th using the first power, and then y to the third. And there's my final answer. Now, in your notebook, I would like you to answer these questions, and we will discuss them in class.